safe to say 2020 has thrown us all for a loop. A lot of us have had our routines and our schedules turned upside down, but now is the time to take back control. That way you can say that even when things were at their toughest and all the odds were against you, you still came out on top. Let's go. Hi guys, it's Laura, and if you have been following me for a while, you will know that around this time I usually set myself a bajillion tasks in an attempt to tie up all the loose ends in my life by the end of the year. But oh, how times have changed. I found, and maybe you feel this way too, that even though I was constantly working on something, I never really felt like I was achieving anything, you know, on the hamster wheel, going nowhere. And I realized it was because I wasn't actually finishing anything. You know, that satisfaction you get when you take a big project off your list. And I'm not talking about all of those small routine things that you have to do on a regular basis, but the big meatier goals. So this year, I said, feck this, and I started focusing on just one thing at a time. Now, if you are an overachieving perfectionist like me, I know that this sounds like nails on a blackboard to you, but stick with me. With singular focus, you can make massive strides. And it does not mean that you have to say no to everything else, just not right now. Later. And there is a little loophole. I'll come back to that in a minute. But first, I want to walk you through the process, including some of the mistakes that I made, starting with this next confession. Around New Year's last year, I decided that I was going to do this. I went through this long process. I stuck post-it notes up all over my walls, narrowed down my goals, and then basically did nothing. In my defense, life got crap. My dad got really sick, 2 of my uncles passed away, I had a whole thing with immigration, trying to get home, global pandemic hit. Circumstances this year have not exactly been conducive to greatness. Honestly, I think a lot of us didn't know our arse from our elbow for most of the year. So I got serious with myself, and I want you to get serious with yourself too. And listen, I would love to tell you that I just flicked a switch, magically knew exactly what I wanted to do. But it took me several days of journaling and stream of consciousness writing, actually typing, before I finally figured out what my one focus would be. So if you want to figure out what your one thing is, that one big goal that you are going to go after and get results, that is where I would suggest starting. Write down a list of all of your goals, all the things that you want to do, and then do some soul searching, some stream of consciousness writing or typing. I will have some tips on that for you in just a minute. And don't worry if it doesn't immediately throw up answers, or if you think that you've got some clarity and then you wake up the next morning just as confused as ever. Like I said, it took me a few sessions before I nailed it. Okay, the loophole, before we properly dive into this. The reality is that no matter what goal you choose, no matter how much you want it, no matter how determined you are to get it, you're probably not going to be spending all day, every day working on it, unless it is a big, all-encompassing goal like training for an ultramarathon, in which case, rather you than me. But otherwise, it is okay to have more than one focus, but limit it to 2 and keep them in separate areas. For example, I have a personal goal and a work goal, but 2 max. Otherwise, you're just kidding yourself. Here are some things to think about, because obviously you want to pick the most important thing, the thing that is going to transform the rest of your year, transform the rest of your life. But that's easier said than done. So look at all of your goals, all the things you've written down, and ask yourself, which of these would be a natural starting block that you could build the rest from. There are some goals and habits that once you have those in place, they make all the rest of them that little bit easier. So find that starting block, that foundational piece. And don't be coming at me with should. We all want to eat healthier. We all want to exercise more. This has to be something that you are committed to. You're willing to make some sacrifices to get it, and you are going to make it happen. Now, this next one is where I went wrong at the beginning of the year and where I almost stalled this time around, and that is choosing things based on what I wanted to do. Obviously, wanting to do something is great, and you should definitely choose something based on what you are motivated to do, but are those things going to get you the biggest, best results? There is a lot to be said for enjoying the journey, of course, but only if the destination isn't disappointing. You might like the work, but if it's not producing results for you, you're going to end up dissatisfied. Now, sometimes the means is the end. You know, the journey is the destination. It's like a road trip. There is no real outcome or destination or end point. It's the process, you know, like with self-care or relaxation. Those are things where the activity itself is the goal. But if you are aiming for something that has a result at the end of it, then go for a balance between enjoyment and results. You are going to get the greatest satisfaction out of the goals that have substance. Okay, here's another stumbling block that I want you to be aware of. Even after you have decided on your one thing, the thing that you are going to turn into a reality in your life, goals have multiple steps. So not only are you choosing one goal at a time, but you also need to be sure that you are choosing just one step at a time. So my personal goal is to improve my health. Now, I do have a more specific goal than that, but let's just keep things general for now. Obviously, there are so many different things that I could do to improve my health, but if I tried them all at once, you know, if I tried to overhaul my life overnight, it just wouldn't work. So my first step, and this is just something that I have decided, you might have a completely different first step, but my first step is to cut out junky snack foods, particularly in the evenings. Just reducing the amount of processed food that I'm putting into my body. My next step then, once I feel that I have a good handle on that, and not before, is to improve the foods that I am eating, slowly transitioning from that processed stuff to more natural, whole foods. And when I feel I have got that down, then and only then am I going to start incorporating some regular exercise. Do you see how that is a much more solid, strategic, achievable plan? And none of that is to say that I'm not going to do any exercise, you know, while I'm working on that first step. It also doesn't mean that I'm only going to eat processed foods for my meals in the meantime. It's just that my main focus right now is cutting out all of those unhealthy snacks. And that for me means doing some experimenting with which foods make me feel full for longest so that I'm not tempted and I don't want to snack in between meals and in the evening. That is my foundation, and I want to make sure that it is rock solid before I build from there. The final facet of this then is timeline. Everyone, myself included, talks about goals in terms of time. You know, 5-year goals, yearly goals, Q4 goals. Deadlines are great for keeping you focused, but my overall feeling here is that you should stick to your one thing for as long as it takes to get the job done properly. This is your focus. This is the thing that you are working on and that you are going to keep working on until it is done right. You will knuckle down, knock it out, and then it's on to the next one. So what is your one thing? What are you committed to conquering? Now, when you are ready to leave the rat race, get off the hamster wheel and live with purpose and intention, then be sure that you are subscribed to this channel and click the bell so that you will get notified of my next video, which is all about setting yourself up for success. You've picked your goal. Now you want to make sure that you have a solid foundation and a plan in place so that you can achieve it. That is coming up next week. Until then, go raibh míle maith agóibh. Agus feicim mé sibh go luath. Slán!